My name's Carrie, and if you're expecting a fairy tale, you might want to look elsewhere. My life's been anything but, starting from when I was just 3. That's when my mom decided she'd had enough of us, or maybe it was just Dad and me she'd had enough of. She took off with some guy she met at a bar, or so the story goes. Never much cared to get into the specifics, the outcome was the same either way. She was gone, leaving me and Dad to fend for ourselves. School was a trip. Kids can be real jerks, especially when they sniff out something they think they can use against you. "Hey, Carrie, gonna run off like your mom?" That was a popular one for a while. Or, "Guess it runs in the family, huh?" Whenever I'd mess up or get in trouble. Kids, right? "Don't let them get to you," Dad would say. "They don't know Jack." He had a way of making it seem like it was us against the world, which, I guess, it kinda was. My dad, Jack, he was a rock. Started out slinging hammers on construction sites, then clawed his way up to running his own gig. The man busted his back so I wouldn't want for anything. And I didn't, not really. He made damn sure of it. But there was always this hole, you know? No matter how many new shoes or gadgets he threw my way. Graduation was a blur of caps and gowns, and before I knew it, I was stepping onto a college campus. Fresh start, new faces. Nobody knew about my mom and her leaving. It was liberating. For the first time, I wasn't Carrie, the girl with the runaway mom. Just Carrie. College was like stepping into another world. Nobody gave two hoots about my past. My mom's story? Might as well have been ancient history. It was all about the here and now. Classes, parties, late-night cram sessions. I started to feel like I could leave that old version of myself behind. My self-esteem? Shot through the roof. I was making friends, acing classes, and for once, I didn't feel like I was playing catch-up with everyone else. One evening, I found myself at this dive bar with a bunch of classmates. The place was buzzing, the kind of hum that told you stories were being made. I was wedged into a booth with Sarah and Mike, nursing a beer and pretending I understood their debate about some philosophical crap. "So, Carrie," Mike slurred, turning his bleary eyes on me. "What's your story? You always dodge the question." Sarah elbowed him. "Lay off, man. Not everyone's an open book." I shrugged, the old anxiety nibbling at the edges of my newfound confidence. "Not much to tell. Grew up here, Dad's in construction. Came to college to get away from the same old, same old. Life in college was a smooth ride, all things considered. Classes, friends, a couple of forgettable dates here and there. But nothing serious, you know? I was busy carving out a little slice of life for myself, away from the shadows of my past. And then, bam, Lucas happened. It was a typical Friday night. Sarah had dragged me to this house party, promising it'd be a blast. "Come on, Carrie, you need to get out more. Live a little," she'd said, practically pulling me out the door. The place was packed, music blasting, people everywhere. I was nursing my drink, feeling kind of out of my element, when Lucas bumped into me. Literally. Spilled his drink down my front. "Shit, I'm so sorry," he blurted, eyes wide, a look of genuine horror on his face. "Great, just what I needed," I muttered, dabbing at my shirt with some napkins he'd handed me. "Let me make it up to you. Another drink? On me, obviously," he offered, still looking mortified but hopeful. I eyed him, taking in his messy hair and the earnest look in his eyes. "Sure, why not? Can't get worse, right?" That drink turned into 3, and before I knew it, we were holed up in a corner, talking like we'd known each other for years. Lucas was easy to talk to. He had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. "So, Carrie, what's your deal? You always hang out at parties, looking like you'd rather be anywhere else?" he teased, nudging my shoulder lightly. I rolled my eyes, a smile tugging at my lips, despite myself. "Nah, just not my scene, I guess. I'm more of a quiet nights and good books kind of girl." "Ah, a mystery wrapped in an enigma. he quipped, winking at me. I like it. We delved into everything, our majors, our hometowns, our hopes for the future. Lucas was studying architecture, had dreams of designing sustainable buildings. Make the world a little less shitty, you know, he said, passion lighting up his eyes. It was refreshing, talking to someone so different from me yet so similar in many ways. He told me about his mom, how she'd raised him on her own after his dad left. She's a fighter, my mom. Taught me everything I know about not giving up. I found myself opening up about my dad, how he'd been both parents rolled into one. He's my hero, honestly. Worked his ass off to give me a good life. Lucas nodded, understanding flickering in his gaze. Sounds like we both got lucky with the parent lottery, huh? Yeah, I guess we did. I agreed, feeling a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with the alcohol. As the night wound down, Lucas leaned in, his voice lowering. I don't know about you, but I'm really glad I spilled my drink on you. I laughed, the sound bubbling up from somewhere deep inside. Me too, Lucas. Me too. He walked me home that night, the streets quiet and the air crisp around us. When we reached my door, he hesitated, shuffling his feet. So, can I see you again? Maybe without the party and the spilled drinks? I bit my lip, considering. A part of me was screaming to say yes, to dive headfirst into whatever this was. Another part was cautious, wary of getting too close. But looking into Lucas's hopeful eyes, I found myself nodding. Yeah, I'd like that. Fast forward through countless dates, late-night phone calls, and studying sessions together, we were inseparable. College life was good, but having Lucas in it made it great. Before I knew it, graduation rolled around. Walking across that stage, diploma in hand, I spotted Lucas in the crowd, cheering louder than anyone else. Felt like my heart was gonna burst right out of my chest. Life after college was a blur of new beginnings. Landed a job as an accountant, and Lucas kicked off his career in architecture. We were doing it, making our way in the big, wide world. And we were doing it together. One day, out of the blue, life decided to throw us another curveball. I was pregnant. The 2 lines on the test, clear as day. My world stopped for a minute, everything silent around me. When I told Lucas, his reaction was a mix of shock and something else, joy, maybe? He took my hands in his, eyes shining with a mix of emotions. Carrie, this is... wow. We're gonna have a baby. The weight of the moment hung between us, heavy and sweet all at once. Then, Lucas, ever the straight shooter, said what we were both thinking but hadn't dared to voice yet. Guess it's time to stop messing around, huh? Think about making it official. You know, a wedding. Meeting Lucas's mom, Carol, was like stepping into a hurricane when you've only ever dealt with a light drizzle. Lucas had prepped me, saying she was a bit much sometimes, but that was the understatement of the century. We were at her house, a cozy little place that looked like it belonged in one of those home magazines, all neat and pretty. But the atmosphere? Ice cold, especially after Lucas dropped the baby bomb. Carol just stared at us for what felt like an eternity, her eyes drilling into me. Then, she finally spoke, her voice sharp as a knife. A baby? You're sure it's Lucas's? Lucas looked like he'd been slapped. Mom, what the hell? I was stunned, mouth dry, words stuck in my throat. This was the woman who raised the guy I love? She continued, her gaze never leaving mine. I mean, it's a valid question, Lucas. With her background and all. I felt my face flush with anger. My background? What's that supposed to mean? Carol sighed, as if explaining to a child. Your mother left your family, Carrie. That says something about your character. Lucas jumped in, his tone desperate. Mom, stop it. That's not fair. Carrie's not her mother. But Carol was on a roll, ignoring Lucas. And you, getting pregnant so young. Are you trying to trap my son? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Trap him? We're in this together, Carol. It's not like I planned this on my own. Lucas stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Enough, Mom. This is insane. You're talking about the woman I love and our child. Carol's face softened for a fraction of a second before she went back on the offensive. I'm just looking out for you, Lucas. You have to think about these things before you ruin your life. I was fuming, but Lucas squeezed my hand under the table, a silent plea to stay calm. We've thought about it, Mom. We're getting married. And we'd like your blessing, but we don't need it. Carol scoffed, shaking her head. Marriage. Your kids playing at being adults. Fine, do what you want. But don't expect me to be happy about it. Our wedding was nothing fancy, just a modest gathering with the people who mattered most. My dad was beaming the whole time, practically glowing with pride. But Carol, my new mother-in-law, might as well have been sucking on lemons all evening. Her face was set in a permanent scowl, like she'd walked into the wrong party and couldn't find the exit. At first, after the wedding, I tried to get on Carol's good side, thinking maybe she just needed time to warm up to me. Lucas and I would go over to her place together, but each visit felt like walking into a lion's den. She had this way of talking, dropping little sarcastic comments and laughing them off, but they always landed like punches. Stuff about the baby, like, sure hope the kid gets Lucas's brains, we don't need another runaway in the family. I bit my tongue so much during those visits, it's a wonder I could still talk. But the worst part wasn't the snide remarks, it was how Lucas started acting. He and Carol were thick as thieves, always on the phone or hanging out. And bit by bit, he began to change. It was like he'd absorbed her suspicion and doubt, started looking at me like I was some stranger. One night, he came at me with this gem. Are you sure the baby's mine? You know, given your family history. I stared at him, my jaw on the floor. Are you kidding me right now? You sound just like your mom. He shrugged, a pathetic attempt at looking innocent. It's a valid question, isn't it? I was livid. No, Lucas, it's not. You know me. You know us. How can you even say that? The distance between us grew with each day, each visit to Carol's, each whispered conversation he thought I didn't hear. I stopped going over to her house, couldn't stand the toxicity. Lucas didn't seem to mind, just carried on with their little two-person fan club. One evening, after another solo visit to Carol's, Lucas came home looking troubled. Before he could launch into another one of his interrogations, I cut him off. Lucas, this has to stop. I'm tired of defending myself against accusations and insinuations, especially from you. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in what felt like forever. Carrie, I don't know what's gotten into me. It's just, my mom, she gets in my head. I shook my head, disappointment weighing heavy on my heart. Your mom isn't here, Lucas. It's just you and me. And if we're going to make this work, really work, you need to decide where your loyalties lie. For a brief, shining moment, it felt like I was living in a different world. Carol, my ever-critical mother-in-law, decided to jet off on some extended vacation, leaving us to our own devices for a whole 2 months. You wouldn't believe the change in Lucas. It was like the guy I fell for came back from the dead. We laughed more, talked more, and those nagging doubts and fights just melted away. Being pregnant felt a bit easier without Carol's constant commentary in the background. For a while there, I actually thought we'd turned a corner. Then Carol came back. It was like a switch flipped in Lucas again. The tension, the suspicion, it all came creeping back, like mold in a forgotten corner. She must have been filling his head with all sorts of nonsense the second she got back. I held on to hope, though. Hope that once our daughter was born, things would change. That seeing his child, our child, would snap Lucas out of whatever spell his mom had cast over him. Boy, was I wrong. From the moment our daughter, Lily, entered the world, Carol was on us like a hawk. She'd swoop into our home uninvited, under the guise of helping. But her help was more like a barrage of criticism. You're holding her all wrong, she'd snap, watching me like I was about to drop Lily on her head. Her bath is too cold. Are you trying to freeze her? She'd accuse, sticking a finger in the bathwater like some kind of twisted Goldilocks. And the feeding? According to Carol, I might as well have been trying to poison Lily with the way I was going about it. Nothing I did was right. I couldn't even change a diaper without Carol lamenting how I was setting Lily up for a lifetime of discomfort. Her favorite jab? It's clear your mother never taught you anything. Look at this place. It's a mess. And you're just lazy. Each word was a knife, and I felt myself bleeding out, bit by bit. Lucas, for his part, was no help. He'd parrot his mother's concerns, adding his own layer of doubt to the mix. One particularly rough day, Carol was on her usual tirade about the state of the house, her voice a grating symphony of dissatisfaction. This is no environment for a child. It's filthy. And you're just sitting around. What kind of mother are you? I was at my breaking point. I'm doing my best, Carol. Maybe if you actually offered help instead of just criticism, things would be different. Her laugh was sharp, dismissive. Help? Dear, you need more than help. You need a miracle to learn how to take proper care of a child. Lucas walked in just as the words left her mouth, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. What's going on here? Your wife, Carol said, turning her poison-tipped words toward him, is clueless. It's a wonder Lily is thriving at all. I looked to Lucas, hoping for some sign of support. But all I saw was hesitation, a man torn between his mother and his wife. The night was rough. Lily's tummy was acting up, keeping us both awake till the early hours. Deciding we both needed the rest, I took the day off to lie down with her, hoping she'd feel better soon. But then Carol burst in like a tornado, her voice booming through the house about how dirty it was and that there was nothing to eat. This place is a mess. And what about dinner? Lucas can't be expected to cook for himself. I was too tired and frazzled to deal with her. Lucas said he'd handle dinner tonight. It's fine, I mumbled, trying to keep my voice down so Lily wouldn't wake up. Carol wasn't having it. She raised her voice even louder. He should not have to. It's your job to take care of him. Get up and start cooking. Ignoring her, I went back to the bedroom, hoping she'd get the hint and leave. But no, Carol followed, ranting right into the bedroom about how I was failing as a wife and mother. Fearful her yelling would disturb Lily, I got up, gently took Carol by the arm, and led her towards the door. Please, just stop. You're going to wake her, I pleaded quietly. That's when she started screaming. Are you kicking me out? How dare you lay your hands on me? Lucas came home right at that moment. Seeing me with my hand on his mother, he lost it. What the hell do you think you're doing to my mom? He bellowed. Before I could explain, he shoved me. I lost my balance, my head cracking against the edge of the bedside table. Everything went black. Waking up to cold water being splashed on my face was a shock. Carol and Lucas were both standing over me, looking more angry than concerned. Lily's cries filled the air, adding to the chaos. Lucas was livid. Until you prove that's my daughter, I'm not touching her. Deal with her crying. He practically threw me towards the bedroom. The room spun around me as I tried to stand, my head pounding in pain. I'd never felt so alone. My dad, the gentlest man I knew, had never so much as raised his voice at me. And here was the man I loved, the father of my child, pushing me away like I was nothing. I picked up Lily, holding her close, her cries slowly turning into whimpers. As I rocked her, the reality of what just happened hit me hard. Lucas and his mother had crossed a line I never imagined they would. The next morning, Lucas left for work as if nothing had happened, and I quickly packed my suitcase and called a taxi. The moment I stepped into Dad's house, with Lily cradled against my chest, the weight of the world seemed to crash down on me. Dad, I didn't know where else to go. I whispered, my voice breaking, feeling the tears I'd held back start to edge their way forward. He didn't say much, just took us in and held me tight, Lily squished between us. You're safe here, he murmured, his voice a steady rock in the chaos. Tell me everything. Explaining it all to Dad was like reliving a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. His face grew darker with each word, his anger palpable. We're going to the police, he decided, his tone leaving no room for argument. And then, we're putting an end to this. The police station was intimidating, cold, and impersonal. The officer behind the desk looked up as we approached. Can I help you? I took a deep breath, Dad's hand on my shoulder grounding me. I need to report domestic violence. The officer's demeanor changed immediately, his voice softer. Of course, ma'am. Please, come with me. We'll talk somewhere private. Sitting in that small room, with Dad by my side, I poured everything out to the officer, who listened intently, nodding encouragingly. It's important we know everything, he assured me after I stumbled over the details, ashamed and scared. When Dad's journalist friend got in touch about the TV segment, I was hesitant. It's a chance to tell your story, on your terms, Dad encouraged. You could change things for others. Sitting under the harsh studio lights, facing the host, my stomach was a knot of nerves. Many are calling you a symbol of courage, the host began. What made you decide to speak out? I found strength I didn't know I had. I realized silence was another form of fear, I said, my voice steady. I needed to fight back, not just for me, but for Lily. No one should have to go through this. The segment aired, and suddenly, my story was out there, sparking conversations, drawing support from corners I never expected. Lucas's facade crumbled under the weight of public scrutiny, his actions condemned. The court proceedings were a whirlwind. Lucas was found guilty of domestic violence, stripped of any rights to Lily. And in a twist I hadn't seen coming, they ran a DNA test. Turned out, Lily was his, no doubt about it. His baseless accusations, all for nothing. Carol didn't get off scot-free either. The judge hit her with a fine for emotional abuse. It wasn't much, but it was something, a recognition of the hell she'd put me through. After the divorce, I kept my distance from Lucas and his mom, Carol. The last thing I wanted was to hear more excuses or face their denial. But Dad, ever the protector, saw an opportunity for closure, not just for us, but publicly. He arranged for us to confront Lucas and Carol in the same TV show, after which my life changed. Sitting backstage, I felt a storm of emotions. Anger, betrayal, but underneath it all, a flicker of hope for some semblance of justice. Dad squeezed my hand, his silent way of saying, "We've got this." The host was known for not pulling punches, and as we took our seats, I could see Lucas and Carol were uneasy. The audience's murmurs grew quiet as the show began. Today, we have a story of betrayal, courage, and the pursuit of justice, the host began, setting the stage. He turned to Lucas and Carol. You've been accused of some serious mistreatment. How do you respond to these allegations? Lucas stumbled over his words. I didn't realize how far things had gone. I'm sorry. Carol tried to deflect. We thought we were doing what was best. The host cut in. Best? By whose standard? You pushed her to the brink. The audience's reactions ranged from disbelief to anger, their hums and murmurs filling the studio. Then, it was my turn to speak. I don't need their apologies. What's done is done. My focus is on my daughter and giving her a life full of love and security, something they tried to take from us. Lucas looked down, unable to meet my gaze, while Carol seemed to shrink in her seat. The host nodded solemnly. It takes incredible strength to stand in your truth. What message do you hope to send? That justice and kindness always win. That no one should ever feel alone or without options, I said, my voice steady. By the end of the show, Lucas and Carol had publicly apologized, but their words felt hollow. I wasn't looking for their remorse, I was looking for a way to move forward, to show Lily the strength of standing up for oneself. Leaving the studio, Dad put an arm around me. You were amazing out there. Lily's going to grow up knowing how strong her mom is. And he was right. As I looked down at Lily, sleeping peacefully in my arms, I knew our future was bright. Together, with my dad's unwavering support, we'd build a life defined by love, resilience, and the belief that after every storm, there comes a new dawn.